Hi everyone, welcome to another Rubber Dance Design Team tutorial. This week I'm going to show you how to turn a simple idea into another card design. So if you like something that you've done, why not think about it a little bit further and change it into another card design. I'll be using the brand new Da Vinci stamps from Rubber Dance, and I'll be starting with this symbol card, and then I'm going to show you how to change the design a little bit, make something a little bit more complicated. So as I said, I'm going to be using these Da Vinci stamps, and I thought I'd show you them all first. I love this collection of images, and I'm sure I'm going to have great fun working with them. And you can see immediately how wonderfully they stamp. So I was really pleased to receive these, and I was immediately drawn to this daisy. I love a good daisy stamp, and I'm combining it today with this text all about the definition of the word art. So to start with, I'm going to show you how to create the little panel that features on both of our cards. So I need to create a mask for my daisy, and that will enable us to make it look like the daisy is sat on top of the text, almost as if you've only used one stamp. And I've showed you this technique before, and I'm going to be using this archival ink, which is potting soil. It's one of the Windy Vecchi colours, and I'm going to be stamping it onto my post-it note, which is rather bigger than I actually need. I'm making sure as much of that flower as possible sits on that sticky strip, and that way I get plenty of adhesion when I stick my mask onto my little panel. Now this one is a little bit tricky to cut out. You can see how well the image stamps, but I do only really need one mask, so I'm only going to cut out one layer of paper. But before I do that, I'm going to stamp my image onto my little 2-inch piece of cardstock. As usual, all the measurements will be over on the Rubber Dance blog, and I'm just going to centre this daisy on this little 2-inch square of card. I believe these are called twinchies, aren't they? So we're making a little set of twinchies today. And now with my rather large scissors, I have no idea why I grabbed these scissors rather than a smaller set, but I didn't really notice until I watched this video back, and I'm cutting out my daisy image. Now it's always a good idea to be very accurate when you're cutting out your masks. You get the best results that way, so just take a little bit of time, and I have actually fast forwarded this video, so it does take me a little bit longer than it looks on screen, to make sure you cut everything accurately, and that you get a lovely mask to pop over your daisy stamp. So take a little while just to line it all up, and then we're going to take the art text stamp and trying to keep it straight, stamp it right over the whole 2-inch panel. And as you can see, when you take off the mask, you've got a lovely daisy sitting on top of all of that text. I love how that kind of masking technique works. Because I loved how this little image turned out, I decided to make more than one card design to show you how you can take an image, a little bit of work that you've done and just change it up a little bit. And working in these 2-inch squares, it makes it really easy to be able to do that. So I'm just going to stamp myself another set of those little daisy images. So I've cut a further 3 2-inch squares, and I'm stamping that daisy roughly in the middle of each, and then I'm going to use that same masking technique to get the text into the background. So just making sure that stem is in the right place. And then the trickiest part is just making sure that you keep your text as straight as you can in relation to the little 2-inch square. So feasibly you could do this little technique with lots of the stamps that you might have in your collection. And I know that using this little method of creating these panels, you could easily make lots of other card designs featuring this little technique. And as usual, I'm going to be using my Distress inks to colour in my image, and because I've used that archival ink, I'm not going to have any problems with the main image bleeding because it is permanent once it's set. And I'm just using some of my Distress inks to colour in these little flower images. Now I'm bearing in mind that I am going to have one image on one card, and then I'm going to be using the other three on a second card. I'm going to be colouring two of the daisies the same colour, and then I'm going to be using a further two colours for the other three images. So the trick to using Distress inks to colour is to have some kind of shiny surface in order to squidge your ink pad onto the surface, and that just gives you a little palette or puddle of colour. And then using a fine paintbrush or a water brush, I prefer to use a paintbrush because I've got a little bit more control of how wet my brush is, and then colour in your image. So I've used a forest moss for the stems, and then I've chosen to use mustard seed for the actual petals of the daisy, and then I'm coming back in with some wild honey, which I've coloured the centre of the daisy, and then I'm just using it to add a little bit of shadow to each of those petals. When you're colouring quite a fine image like this, you don't want your brush too wet, so in between cleaning off the colour from my brush or swapping colours, I'm just drying off my paintbrush on a little bit of kitchen roll. You can see here I've got a little scrap of the card that I'm using just to test the colours out, because this is a slightly darker background colour than I would normally use, just making sure that the colours look nice against that colour of cardstock. And now I'm going to be colouring one of the daisies for the second card, and this time I'm using ripe persimmon, and I'm just going to be using that one colour this time. So I'm just going over the petals once with the colour, and then I'm going to come back in a second time with the colour a little bit more intense, just to create that little illusion of shadow on each of the petals. A little bit difficult to see on camera. I'm just coming down one side of each of the petals just to add a little bit more interest. And I'm just speeding myself up a little bit, and this time I'm colouring the daisy with seedless preserves, and then doing exactly the same trick as I did with the ripe persimmon, and just coming in with a slightly darker colour on the very edge of the petals. So that's the three different colours that I intend to use, and because I want just a single image for my simplest card design, I'm coming back in and repeating that colour scheme with the wild honey and the mustard seed to create myself another yellow daisy. So I've got four lovely daisies, and I just need to create myself one more panel, and I decided not to repeat the daisy pattern. This time I'm going to use another one of the stamps from the set. It doesn't involve any masking this time because the actual word stamp I want to use is completely blocked in, so it will go over the top of the text. So I'm stamping the text first, and then I'm going to be inking up the word art, again using that potting soil archival ink, and I'm just going to stamp it, and I want it just to run up the side of the actual little 2-inch block of text. So I'm positioning it so that it's coming up from the bottom right hand corner, so it will sit like that on the card design. So working on the simplest card first, I've got a card base which is a 5 3/4 inch square or a 14.5 centimetre square. So I started by cutting my brown cardstock to measure 11.5 by 5 3/4 and scored it at 5 3/4 inches. If you're working in centimetres, you need to cut a piece that measures 29 centimetres by 14.5 centimetres and score that at 14.5 centimetres. Then in the same colour cardstock as we've made our little 2 inches or 5 centimetres, we're going to add a panel of card that measures 5.5 inches square, and that just gives you a brown frame all the way around the outside of the card. I'm using PVA glue to attach my card together, but you could use double-sided tape if you want to. So the topper or the next layer on the card in centimetres is 14.5 centimetres squared. And those little 2 inches actually in centimetres are 5 centimetres squares. And then I'm going to mat that onto a square of card that measures 2 1/8 of an inch, or in centimetres about 5.5 centimetres, just so that you've got a fine border of the brown to frame your little 2-inch work of art. Again, I'm using PVA glue, but you could use double-sided tape to do this if you want to. Now the choice is yours where you want to display your little work of art, and you can see here I've got choices. I can put them slightly to one corner or right in the middle, and I'm going to keep it simple and I'm going to go right in the middle of the card. But before I do that, I'm taking another 5.5 inch square or 14.5 centimetres square of the same cardstock as I've used on the front of the card, and I'm going to create an inner, and I'm going to be using this little stamp. It seemed appropriate. It's part of the Da Vinci set, and when I stop stamping you'll be able to read it and see simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, Leonardo da Vinci, and it seemed appropriate for this set of stamps and for this little design that I'm creating today. And then I just wanted to add a little daisy element to the bottom of this panel, and I'm just going to use the daisy stamp that just looks like it's on its way out and it's about to start seeding, and I'm just going to stamp a couple of those in the bottom right hand corner of my insert. And you can see here I'm not actually using any form of cushioning. My stamps are mounted directly onto my stamp block, and I'm having no problems whatsoever getting a lovely crisp image. I'm just going to drop this one down a little bit, and keeping it simple, I've decided not to colour in these 2 little images. So we're almost finished. I'm going to attach again this to the inside of the card. Now if you decide you want to make this card to go in the post, you could add the little daisy panel using double-sided tape or glue, but I'm going to raise my panel on this card. I'm using foam pads in order to do that. I actually think this design, if you left them blank inside, would make a great little note card, you know, if you want to send a special message to somebody. So they're quite easy to make up, and perhaps in slightly different colours on the daisy, and you can put them together for the next time that you want a little card handy just to send perhaps a thank you message to a friend. And then I'm going to finish it off. I could leave this completely plain, but I just decided I wanted to just add a little bit of glossy accents to my daisy. Alternatively, I could have gone over the whole panel to make it look a bit like a tile. I just wanted to pick out that lovely daisy image. So I'm just using the nozzle to move the glossy accents around those petals. It's a little bit delicate because those petals are quite fine, but I'm just taking my time and then finishing off by adding a little bit more to the stem. So that's it, that's the simple card design finished, and then we've got our 4 panels ready and waiting to make up our second or our alternative card design. So before I start putting that together, I'm going to make myself a piece of ribbon to match my card, and I'm just going to be using the colours that I've used to colour the daisies. So I'm starting out with a piece of cream American seam binding, and then I've created a little puddle of the mustard seed distress ink, and you can't see this colour very well on camera, but I've got a little stiff brush. I'm dipping it into the puddle of ink, and then I'm just running my finger over the top. Oh, you can see it there. That was a rather big splatter, but I'm trying to create just slightly tiny dots of colour across my entire length of ribbon. So I just move the ribbon about and then go in and splatter some more. And because yellow is the lightest of the three colours I'll be using, I'm making sure I've got plenty of little yellow splatters over my ribbon. And then I'm going to be a little bit more delicate with the other two colours. So this one is ripe persimmon. And again, this is just going to create quite a light coloured ribbon. I didn't want anything too heavy. As you'll see, it goes quite well with the card. And then again, repeating that with the seedless preserves. So I just wanted to create a little bit more interest on my ribbon, and I'm going to use this daisy stamp to do that. I'm going to stamp it randomly along the length of the ribbon, and I'm going to repeat that with all three colours. Now, don't expect your image to be completely crisp when you do this. It's just a hint of a print, if you like, and it's quite delicate, so it's quite nice. I like to try and dry them off to stop them bleeding too much into the ribbon, but you will, using distress inks, you won't get a completely crisp image. So just a hint of a flower. And while I'm doing this, I just thought I'd let you know that stay tuned to the end of the video, because I've just been nominated to go into a couple of categories of YouTube Crafters Awards, and I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end of the video. It's quite exciting for me. It really was flattering to be nominated, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about that. So just keep tuned in to the end of the video. So moving on to this second card, and I've got my card base. This time it's slightly bigger, same brown cardstock, but this time it measures 11.5 inches by 8 inches and is scored at 5 3/4 inches. So in centimetres, that's 29 centimetres by 20 and scored at 14.5 centimetres. And then I'm going to attach my card topper, which measures 5.5 inches by 7 3/4 inches, or 14 by 19.5 centimetres. Again, I've got my 4 little 2-inch squares or 5 centimetre squares already stamped up, and I'm going to attach them to their little card mats, which are 5.5 centimetres or 2 1/8 of an inch square. So just framing up my little works of art. Again, you can choose to do this using double-sided tape if you want to. You should have 3 little daisies and 1 little word panel. And again, we're going to attach those to this cream topper using foam pads. I'm going to keep the 3 daisies flat, and then I'm going to just emphasize the art panel by lifting that one. So I'm going to be using glue on the daisies, and I'm going to be using foam pads on the word art. And this is where you need to just be a little bit careful about putting these little elements down. You might want to draw yourself some guidelines first. I'm going to wing it, and I'm going to be using my ruler because I'm using glue, and I've got a little bit of time where I can just slightly manipulate my shapes. And you can see that I've created more or less a 1/2 inch border right around the top 3 sides of the panel, if you like, and I'm sitting them at the top of the card. And then I've got the narrower, almost like a window pane finish in between each of the panels. And as I said, I'm just going to raise the art panel by using foam pads. Now it's entirely up to you. You can raise the whole lot, or you can keep the whole lot flat, or you can do as I'm doing here and having the 3 daisies flat and then just raising the word art. Now before I attach the whole thing to the cardstock, I've left it loose so that I can tie my ribbon around the bottom of the card. So make that initial knot so that it doesn't pull your card base, and then I just spent a little bit of time getting the right size bow and just arranging it so that the print was on the outside of the bow, and then when I was happy, just moving it slightly to one side, I'm going to trim off the edges. You can't quite see that, but I'm just trimming them to a diagonal to stop the ribbon from fraying, and then adding glue to the back of the whole panel and attaching that to the card base. So you can see it's still a fairly simple design, but it just takes the whole idea up a notch. And we're going to create a matching inner as we did before. This time I'm going to give a I'm going to put the 3 little daisies on the bottom of the card, and I am going to colour them this time. Now I was kind of wishing at this point that I'd perhaps pushed them together so that they were definitely on one side. At the moment they aren't one thing or the other, so you might choose to spread them out evenly or push them all slightly to one side. And I'm going to be using this little quote stamp, "You need chaos in your soul to give birth to a dancing star," and I just thought that I wanted to give the second quote in this little stamp set an airing, and it looks quite nice, if not a little bit crooked. It's funny, I know you're not even watching this yet, but when I'm doing my editing, but I can hear you, I can hear the vibes. Helen, that's not straight, what are you doing? But it's not crooked enough that I am that bothered enough to do it again, and I'm just going to add, this time add the colour of the same 3 little daisies that I've got on the front panel. I'm echoing them on this inside panel and just painting it to finish off the insert for this card. And then it's time using double-sided tape or PVA glue to attach the inner to the inside of this card, and that's the second card design finished. So I hope I've given you something to think about. 1, in layering up your background stamps with your focal images, and 2, in just taking your ideas and stretching them a little bit further. If you've got something that you like, why not try it in a different format and make the most of your lovely designs. So as I show you the final 2 designs, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to leave you a link back to the Rubber Dance blog via my blog. It's the only way that I can do it. I can't link directly to Rubber Dance on my YouTube videos. Alternatively, I'll leave you a link to the blog at the bottom of this video, and it's definitely worth popping along to see all the lovely work of the Rubber Dance design team. Lots and lots of inspiration for using the gorgeous images from Rubber Dance, and I'm hoping that you'll pop along and check out what's on offer over there. And of course I'm also going to tell you about my little bit of news after my credits, so just stay tuned. So before I go, if you like my videos, then please hit that subscribe button or the share button or the like button or all 3 of the buttons, and don't forget to pop along and visit me over at my blog, and I look forward to seeing you over there. Until next time, thank you for watching. So it's me back again, and I'm going to leave you the link here so that you can jump back to my blog and then hop on over to Rubber Dance to pick up lots and lots more inspiration for Rubber Dance stamps, as well as the measurements for these cards. So now for my exciting news. I really was thrilled to hear that the lovely Lisa, who is one of my subscribers, had nominated me for a couple of the categories of the Crafty Academy Awards. Now, I'd not heard of the Crafty Academy Awards before, but it really is lovely to be nominated, and to think that somebody cared enough about or liked my videos enough to nominate me in the first place. I do work quite hard in order to bring you lots and lots of different ideas and hopefully tutorials that are useful to you. and I spend a lot of time editing them to make them easy to watch, and hopefully to step you through the things that you'll need to do in order to make similar projects for yourself. I've been nominated in 4 categories: Best Steampunk, which was a little bit unusual for me, but when I look through there are a few bits and pieces that I can see that have got steampunk influences. Best Cards, Best Mixed Media and Best Tutorials. So I'm really thrilled to have been nominated for those 4 categories. I'd be even more thrilled if you would like to vote for me. So I'm going to give you all of the details here over top of this little section of videos. 1 is the categories, 2 is how you can vote, and then last but not least, I'll give you a link to my blog if it's easier for you to go over there and then find the links that will take you to the right places in order to be able to cast your vote. You've got till the 31st of October, and I really hope that you like my videos enough to just spend a little bit of time and go over and cast your vote. It really is a thrill for me. I think it is quite a brand new set of awards. I think this is the 2nd year, and it's run by the lovely Betty. And again, a great big thank you to Lisa for thinking of me and putting me up for the awards, and an even bigger thank you to you if you think my videos are good enough for you to cast your vote. And I'm pretty sure you'll find lots of other YouTubes over there you might want to vote for too. So once again, to cast your vote, you can email Betty at crimsonandcream6@aol.com and let her know the categories you're voting for, and hopefully my name, Helen Allen, if you're voting for me. But don't forget, you could click and look at my blog, and I'll show you all the links you need to be able to find out more about these awards. They are really a great fun way of just showing your appreciation to the YouTube crafters that you like to watch. So don't forget, it closes on 31st of October, and I will see you again soon with more videos. Thank you for watching.